where we are. And I was curious if we could get a report from you at some point, Jared, about how much money we've raised for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been keeping track of it the whole way along, whether it was cash donations, check donations. We have a spreadsheet that I can give you a total on.
Yeah, and he really had high praises for Mr. Sean Moran. And I didn't know this, but he sings for the Vogues.
He does. He's a quite accomplished singer.
Yeah, I guess he's really something. And he said Ms. Urbani has been tremendous as well. So he gave us a real nice report, and they're making progress, but I don't think they'll be finished until spring. So,
Madam Vice President, on that subject, I have to apologize. We asked them to make sure they send out thank you letters for everyone who donated. They didn't get to that yet. We followed up on that today, but we just think that's a touch of class that our families deserve. So that's something we have to follow up. We didn't do that yet, and I wanted to report back to you.
All right, good. And we don't have the funding for the athletic funding on the agenda tonight, but hopefully by the next meeting we'll have a better idea of what we.
Yes, ma'am. I let you down. There's been a lot on our plate with COVID and everything else. That's something I didn't get to, but hopefully the next meeting we'll have something in place, give you time to look at and for the board's consideration.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we want to take a look at that because we have a big discussion tonight on our reserve. So, okay. So let's go to the 2021 big discussion for us. First on the agenda on unaudited numbers, of course, but the discussion of transfer to capital reserve, Jared.
Yes, ma'am. We've been kind of covering this over the last couple of months as we've been closing out the 2021 school year. But at this point, the auditors have been in. They were in the second week of October here to start their audit report, which the first thing that they really do as part of their audit report is go through all of our expenses, all of our revenue to make sure they agree. They audit payables, they audit receivables, just to really kind of help us close out our books and make sure they agree, because at the end of this week, we have to submit our annual financial report to the PDE. And it really is kind of our big report that we work towards that shows PDE what we spent, what we've earned. So the auditors want to make sure that they're pretty much in agreement with us before we submit that. So what you have before you, though it says unaudited information because their audit report is not complete, is really the final numbers that the auditors have helped us get to, and to help us verify where we are at. So I'm not going to go through because we do have, like you said, a lot on our agenda tonight. But the cover page really does summarize our revenues, our expenditures, and shows kind of where we are ending the year. And that number is the $1,918,483 to the good. And, we've been kind of alluding to that over the past couple of months, that we knew we were going to end really a positive for the year. That is an excellent number, way better than where we thought we would be a year ago, or I guess a year and a half ago when we approved that budget with almost a $2 million deficit. And we can certainly, and the auditors, when they come in and do their report here in another month or two, will delve into those numbers a little deeper.
Let me ask you a quick question before we open it up. So it looks like you're going to carry over a good bit more in our general fund, which impacts the reserve discussion considerably. So you're putting your budget moving forward. You're showing fund balance by July 1st. Am I getting that right? 9.9 million.
That would be, yes. If you add as of right now, before any transfers are entered in here, if we were to leave all that 1.9 million surplus just to roll into the general fund balance, we would technically begin this year with a $9.9 million fund balance.
Typically, we run it at about 8 million.
That's where we've been. I mean, we've been slowly kind of increasing. 17-18, it ended with 6.8, and then we ended with 7.5, and then 19-20 ended right around $8 million. So it's been slowly upticking over the past couple of years.
Nice.
Yeah. It ended last year at $8 million, even after we transferred $950,000 to the capital reserve.
Well, these are nice numbers, and I want to thank everybody for working so hard, the board and the administration, everybody. So we have a discussion tonight about the capital reserve and what we want to do. Hold on, Tom. So we just want to start thinking about. We're going to get some numbers from Jared. So let's ask some questions on the budget first, and then we're going to get into our discussion of the cap reserve. Tom.
There's a guideline for amount of money we can keep in our reserve, in our general reserve. I thought that was about 8 million. Am I wrong on that?
It is around our fund policy, I believe, states around 8% maybe is the fund balance policy.
Is that our policy, or is that Department of Education policy?
It is the board policy.
Okay. And so that would be how much?
And that's right around budgeted expenditures. So let's just say, I think our budget this year is the 58 million because it's budgeted expenditures. So
we're in good shape.
Yeah, but we should move money out of this fund then.
What?
We should move money
Oh,
out
I
of
thought you
this.
said we shouldn't.
No.
yeah, be right around
It's the math.
$4.6 million would be around your 8%.
Say again?
4.6 million.
Wow. Okay, so we're twice what we expect to be.
Now there is a
How much of that is the leftover ESSER money?
none of that is a leftover ESSER
None
money.
of it, okay.
No, because
I know we still have money, and I didn't know if that was reflected there.
There's a capital account too, correct?
there's a capital reserve.
Yeah,
Yes,
How much is in that account?
it ended the year right around $1.2 million. But some of that is where it ended, but it also, we hadn't paid for the turf yet out of that. And then you have a budget of almost $600,000 worth of projects that has to come out of that. So
You're talking about our list.
the capital reserve, yes.
Yeah.
There was an approved budget that the board approved for projects that the district could actually start working on during the year without having to come back to the board for approval. And that includes like a new maintenance truck, carpeting, those type of things that are just done on a daily basis by the administration without having to come back to the board for approval after they approve that budget.
So, Terry, we were going to talk about this East Pike roof because I think that's first and foremost on everybody's mind. So I don't know what you found out about, or what, Jared, you found out about where these folks are on their estimates.
Yeah, Randy, if you could, I created a spreadsheet and it's linked to the agenda here tonight. It wasn't finalized because it doesn't have the amount about the transfer, so that's why I didn't print it out for everybody.
Which one do you want me to open, Jared?
The second, for number 2 there, the roof replacement cost.
Okay.
That's easy to see.
But just putting some estimated numbers in there, I know it's still a little hard to see there, but there is a motion on the agenda tonight to actually approve the cost of the roof replacement. And that isn't everything. That is really just the roof membrane, the extra insulation. That is $776,000. That's for both the school wing and the administration wing. And then we've got an estimate from our engineers. The board authorized them at the last meeting to start to work on possibly increasing the curb height for a lot of the units on top of the roof. Then they were estimating that cost, and to start the work, we don't absolutely, they would be putting it out to bid, so that we're not committed to doing all that work at this point. But I wanted to include their estimated cost of $375,000 on there. And then to do that work, they were charging the district $30,000. So that's why I've included that as part of the roof replacement. And then the study for the HVAC replacement is not complete yet. So they're still working on that, but I did get an estimate. I set a range, an average. What do you think it's going to cost to replace both the admin HVAC and the HVAC unit that is over the old office over there? And they're saying probably 1.5 million. And then I just put an estimate because we haven't authorized them to do that replacement work or anything to actually, help us with the bid drawings. So I put a cost in there of $100,000 for the engineering work just to replace the HVAC, bringing the total. And this is just an estimate. This is my best estimate. we're probably looking around almost $2.8 million to do both the roof and the HVAC work.
And you have, did you say you have 1.2 already in there? The reserve?
There
Okay.
was at the beginning of this year.
What's in it now, roughly?
Well, we had to pay for
Turf.
the turf. I estimate if you take the turf out of there and you take all the projects, there's probably about $680,000 left in there. And if you scroll down a little bit, Randy, I kind of put that in the next possible funding available to pay for the new roof. And really, as of right now, that's all that's, we technically have committed to we could possibly use for that. Once the board decides of a 2021 capital transfer, which we're looking to do tonight, make a decision on what that number, we can add that to there as well. And then other would be, another funding source that is available if we need to, could be the extra bond proceeds that we have in the capital projects sitting right now. If we needed to dip into that, we could as well.
Well, Walter kind of chimed in at what he said, reserve the full 1.9. I was talking 1.5, but I think I'd go a little higher now. Terry, let's go around to the first, and then Terry, why don't you lead?
Can I just make one
Sure.
suggestion
Go ahead.
before Madam Vice President, is looking at our budgeted numbers here. Yes, there is 1.9 to the surplus, but right around 1.7, 1,750,000. If you transfer that, it becomes an expenditure in your 2021 budget. And that puts you right at the budget amount that you passed back in June. Now, can you go over your budgeted amount that you passed in June when you passed this 2021? You can, because we have a lot of grants in there that, weren't passed as part of the original budget. There's some extra explaining that needs to get done to PDE when you go over your budget amount. But I would just caution the board maybe to look at just, hitting that number so it's not red flag.
1.75 million.
Yeah, right around there. You can go less, you can go to that amount, but if you go higher than that, it's going to be red flag by PDE to say, why did you go over your budget amount?
Okay.
Julie,
All right.
before you go on, I'd like to talk about the roof a little bit. Can we do that?
Yeah, but we're not going to talk all night.
I'm not
about
going
the
to talk all night. We talked at the Buildings and Grounds meeting that we did not need to raise those curbs and pay that fee. So that's $400,000. If I'm wrong on that, correct me, but I thought we decided not to do that. So that's $400,000 that we don't have to spend. Okay,
That's
I'm done.
nice. Thank you. Okay, Terry.
Yeah, this is all great news. All of us have been talking about this for a long time. I'm in favor of putting as much as we can in there. Couple reasons. Main reason is the supply chain. We're not sure, a lot of these figures that we saw on the table are ballpark estimates. So I'd rather be a little safe than sorry. So the 1.75 is the figure that keeps everybody out of explaining things, then I'm good with that.
Okay, Cinda?
Exactly what Terry said. We should always put in, we're always going to spend it.
I know.
So,
That's true.
next year we're going to have more carpeting. We're going to need it. So if we can do it and not get in trouble with PDE,
That's
or if
all.
it's only a little bit of paperwork for Jared to do, if we need to do more, then, as long as we don't get penalized somehow. But I'd go right up to the limit.
We can always move more money in December.
You can always do another transfer this current year if you need to.
Barb?
I'm in agreement.
1.7. Tom, you're okay with 1.7?
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry about being late.
1.7. Mike?
Yes, just to re-echo everyone's comments, we're going to need to upgrade our facilities. We're going to need the money. Now's the time. We worked incredibly hard to build this extra funds. It's going to be spent wisely in our building, so I definitely support that, Madam Vice President.
Jared, I'm going to read into the motion tonight that, oh, Tammy Blank, you're out there. Do you have something to say about it?
No, you can't talk again.
Oh, no.
Do we have a thumbs up? Okay. All right, so we're going to put in substitute incentive program, we have capital reserve, 1,750,000. Wow, that feels good to say that. It's been a long time coming to go about this kind of, these types of options.
Good, sir.
You want to say anything?
Yeah, I accidentally had my mic off. I'll get back on it. and say something.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'm
Okay,
all for it.
Okay. She's all for it?
she's all for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tammy.
That's not what they said last time.
Okay, so that takes us through 1 and 2. Now we have a new investment option for the district funds, as I said, Stewart Capital. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Good. Yes.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
yeah, I agree with Tom, Cinda, Terry, Barb, and you. Go for it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, we're real pleased to be able to do this. So it's a big step for the district.
The only one, just before we leave that real quick, Madam Vice President, is, even with that money, which I think is excellent to transfer into there, and if we would take out the curb, increasing the curb heights, if that is, the direction that the board wants to go, we may need to we don't need to make a decision tonight, but we may need to, I would not recommend using all of capital reserve to completely wipe it out to pay for the roof. So we may need to dip into the bond proceeds a little bit. And we can have further discussion on that as we get some final numbers in as to how much we want to leave in capital reserve by dipping into taking some out of the bond proceeds that we still have remaining. But I just would not recommend wiping it out because that money we do use on a yearly basis for smaller projects. So again, not a decision we need to make tonight.
Yeah, but we are we'll have the motion tonight. We don't want to be getting better ideas now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, without further ado, Malcolm Polly, would you like to tell us what you're here to suggest for us?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Thank you, the school board, for letting me be here this evening. First of all, I want to tell you about Stewart Capital. Stewart Capital Advisors is the asset management subsidiary of S&T Bank. The first question I usually get is that part of the bank? And the answer is yes. I've been with the bank for 20 years, and I was involved in incepting the Stewart Capital within S&T Bank. What I want to talk to you about tonight within this presentation is a fixed income product. We have the Stewart Capital has a 15+ year history of managing fixed income, and prior to that, it's been done within the wealth management area of the bank. The portfolio manager that manages fixed income has been doing this for 33+ years. He's actually been in the business longer than I have, and I started on Black Monday in 1987. And in hindsight, it was a great time to get into the business. I wasn't so sure at the time. What do you need to understand about this? So first of all, what we believe is that cash basically means limited risk. It's not the stuff you carry around in your pocket. So what we try and do is understand what your goals are with that cash and try and put together products that will maximize the return, given the fact that it's short-term money market-like investments. In terms of who this product for, it's specifically for institutions. Now, there are, I guess, two versions of this. What I'm going to talk about tonight is Act 72 eligible. Municipalities within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania are bound by PA Act 72, which limits the types of investments that you can have. Primarily, they're limited to bank product, treasuries, agencies, and municipal bonds. And they're also limited as to maturity. And it's been that way for some time. This product is specific for asset values of $1 million or more, preferably $2 million. It just allows, and this is page 6 of the presentation, it allows us to build a more efficient portfolio. It's for organizations that typically carry large cash balances because you may need them, but you don't necessarily tap into them at any one particular point in time. And you want a higher rate than you can get on money market or CDs. So if all of those are true, then that's really kind of what this product is built for. What you need to understand about the product is that it invests in bonds. And unlike CDs, et cetera, bond prices vary every single day. Okay. However, and the reports that we provide are total return reports, but that's not necessarily important because we're going to hold the bonds to maturity and you're going to mature at par. And we believe that by investing in securities with a maximum maturity of 3 years, they will all mature at par. Okay. So page 8 kind of shows you the problem. That is the yield curve, the current Treasury yields across the rate of the maturity spectrum. Most of the benefit, most of the slope in my term is in my world is in the 2 to 7 year range. So you get out to between 2 years and 7 years, you can capture the more return without accepting a whole lot of additional risk to do that. And so that's kind of where we've been focused. Within the last couple of months, that's actually come in a little bit. And so you actually, if you see the curve in front of you, it's actually from really about 1 year to 7 years, which actually works to your favor because it allows us to invest in shorter term items to get higher returns. Page 9 is kind of the problem. That's money market yields. The red line is CDs, and it shows you that really, even if you go out as far as a year, the best you can really hope for is about 0.25%. And in fact, there's a chart at the end of this presentation that is average CD rates around the country, according to the FDIC. And what that would tell you is that even if you go out 5 years, the best return you can hope for is about 0.27%. Not real exciting. The the green and blue lines are really the Treasury and agency curves, or the spot Treasury rates and the on-the-run Treasury rates. The next page really focuses on a less efficient area of the market, and really where we can help improve yields is to pay attention to efficiency. And where we pick up that benefit is in taxable municipal bonds. Now, most people have heard of municipal bonds, and you don't pay tax on them, such as the bonds issued by the school district. People that bought the bonds don't pay tax on the income generated to them as they buy them. But there is a special version of them that are called taxable municipal bonds, that the interest in those is taxable to the person that buys the bond. Why would you invest in a taxable municipal bond? Well, the Commonwealth has done away with some of the rules that allowed you to refinance. And you can do that by using taxable municipal bonds because you're not replacing them with the same types of things. Additionally, the rate of return, the yields really are not that drastically different between a taxable and a tax-free municipal bond. So you're not losing a whole lot if you issue taxable bonds. The benefit to you all as investors is you get higher yields. And that's really what that chart is showing you. We're focusing on only investment grade bonds, and in fact, only the top 3 credit metrics, which is A-rated and higher. And you could, in theory, go down to BAA. We don't do that for this particular product. Okay. Pages 11 and 12 really kind of point. I've added 12 in this one for you, Jared. Pages 11 and 12 are 2 different versions of the same Act 72 compliant, what we call enhanced cash. And in both cases, very high credit quality, AA credit quality. In the case of the first one, it's 1.6 years in average maturity, so about 1.5 years in average maturity, but you're getting a gross yield of 0.61%. So if you look at it in terms of similar maturity CDs, you're getting about 3 times the yield you can get in a similar maturity CD. Because of that change in yield curve, if you go out a little longer, so if you look at 2 years, you can pick up an additional 0.1%. So about just shy of 2 years, that Act 72 compliant enhanced cash product has a gross yield of about 0.71%. Now, why do I say gross yield? Well, it's because Stewart Capital does get paid to manage the money. And we would commit to charging 0.10%. So the net yield to you is you just take the numbers that I provided you, subtract 0.10, and that's the net yield to the school district. Okay. Page 13 is the average CD rates. The Act, and I didn't get a chance to update this, so the Act 72 compliant is 0.61 and 0.71 as compared to the average annual rates by the FDIC. I know that was kind of quick. What the benefits of this product in addition are, you get daily liquidity. So if you need access to the funds, you can get at it in any day. If you call me by 10 o'clock in the morning, we can probably have you money same day. Worst case scenario, it's the next day. And if you have a depository account with S&T Bank, which I know you do, moving funds is extremely simple. Do you have access to your accounts via the online banking?
Absolutely. Yep.
So we also have online capabilities, and it should be single sign-on. You click on a link, it takes you right into this particular portfolio, so you can watch that every day as well.
What money were you thinking about using? You said $1 million.
Well, right now we have a money market account with S&T Bank. It's basically our savings account. The general fund has a checking account and a savings account. We keep minimal amount of money in the checking account only because the money market account gives us the greatest yield. Not saying we would absolutely close that account down, but like most school districts, we see huge influx of revenue this time of year with property taxes coming in. So right now our money market account has right around $20 million sitting in it. And that's because we've collected it over, the past 3 months, basically. No, we don't need that money right now. What's that? Yes. Yep. We're just, people are paying their tax bills and we thank them for that. And, but right now, that money is really to get us through the rest of, 2021, half of 2022, and then also to get us through the first couple months of July and August before next year's tax money starts coming in. So, that account, our money market account, will hit its peak probably in the next month, probably somewhere around $21-22 million, and then we slowly pull it down until June, maybe July, when it pretty much gets down to right where our fund balance is, probably around $8 million, somewhere around there. And then it will pick back up again. So it really is, it's just a big curve. It comes up and down every single year. And that's the money we're really looking at to invest somewhere else. And S&T has been a great partner with us over the past couple of years. They always give us the best rates. No matter who I call or where I call, S&T will match it. So, the reason why I'm looking for another option is to help us earn some additional interest revenue. I mean, 2 years ago in 1920, we earned $260,000 in interest revenue, and a big part of that is our partnership with S&T. This year, the one we just closed out, we earned $60,000. So that just goes to show what a huge drop and hit that was to our budget in a 1 year's time. And a lot of that, yes, is due to COVID-19 and interest rates. But
well, if you have daily liquidity on it, you're not talking about. I understand that as you draw down, you like to earn it, but this bond money we have from we can't weren't you holding it with some CDs with them?
It's being right now held at Pliget, who monitors it and makes sure, there's a lot, because it is bond proceeds, about what you can earn on interest and everything else. They give us the required reports that if the IRS came in. I'd rather leave that money, especially if we're going to use it over the next couple of years on, possible, some of it for East Pike and then for the Eisenhower projects. I would just be looking mainly to move the money we have in our money market account into Stewart Capital.
And I would say, if I may, that bond proceeds, it's the law against arbitrage. You can't have arbitrage profits, and we don't have the capabilities to do that reporting at this point because we just haven't had the demand.
That's what I wanted, and then I'll open it up to members. So I'd like to know your experience with the project. How many people are using this within school districts of our size, if you have any idea? The other thing is that I've always thought of money markets and CDs as pretty doggone safe, and you get FDIC insurance on your CDs. Well, depending on how you bundle them.
Right.
So this is a little bit riskier because you do have some chance of the default of the underlying
I suppose it's a little bit riskier from the standpoint that it's not all invested in treasuries and agencies. To the extent we would invest in government agency bonds, you do get full faith and credit of the U.S. government. A number of municipal bonds, taxable and tax exempt, have additional credit enhancement, whether implicit or explicit. And quite frankly, if you look at the credit profile of a AA municipal bond relative to a AA corporate bond, the credit profile is actually better for municipal bond than a corporate bond. So yes, it's a little bit more risk, but the you actually improve your liquidity profile. You dramatically increase your return profile, and so we believe that you do get paid for it. The other benefit is that as interest rates go up, and we believe that's going to happen over the next X number of years, this will keep up with it. So it's not waiting for the Fed to move. You actually get the benefit of higher rates as rates work their way higher.
And you've had a good bit of experience with this product.
This product is about 1.5 years old. It was pulled together because of a request that we had in the central part of the state with a municipal pool. But we do have there's school districts that are invested in it, yes.
We'll open it up to the committee. Send out what you.
Wait, can I ask first? Just one more question. Jared, what's the current fees we pay on the money market account, if any? Do we
There
pay
are
fees?
no fees that we pay with money we have sitting in the money market.
And what did you say the total cost is for this?
Our management cost, I would commit to 0.10%.
Okay. And as we start needing the money and we start taking it down, will that cost go up?
No,
as the balance
it
goes
will
down?
not.
It's flat.
Yes.
Okay.
0.10% is on what we've earned on the money. Is that
No, it's on the assets under management.
It's under the assets under management. So it'd be 0.1% of the
Yeah.
$20 million or whatever.
Or whatever's there.
Whatever's there.
Yes.
But that's.
But for that, you're also getting.
0.01, I'm sorry,
You're being compensated.
Yeah.
it's 0.1%.
0.1%.
1/10 of
1/10 of 1%. Yes.
Okay, so so when you say the approximate average return is 0.61, is the management fee already out of that?
Your net would be 0.51 or 0.61, depending on the option that you choose.
So,
Taking fees out.
okay, so that would be less fees.
We're just putting fees in.
Yeah, so if there weren't any fees, we're going to be doubling our interest,
Yes.
more or less. And then we're going to lose, last year we'd lose $6,000 in management fees. If it was last year.
If it's last year, we would have paid 6.
Yeah, if you earned 60,000, we would have lost 0.1%.
Yeah, the money market. Maybe there is a small fee that S&T takes. I don't know what they earn in the money market compared to, I know the rate that they typically give us. There are no direct fees that I can tell come out of there.
Right. And on the bank side, because you're only insured up to $250,000, the Commonwealth requires that dollars be collateralized dollar for dollar for the amount over $250,000. So for a bank in general, it's less. They're doing the yield, the rate pricing really as a service to the organization.
Yeah.
So what our upside would be on the, it's 100 to 110,000 net total compared to 60,000. So it's almost a doubling of our interest at the current rates.
At the current
Yeah.
rates, yeah.
And you bump these rates up 3 or 4 points and we're back up to the 200,000. Okay. Do you think there's much risk here?
I love the bond market, so I feel as long as he's got high-grade investments in it, he's investing in municipalities that are, I imagine, are you picking these, or how do you said you have a guy running this desk?
We do all of our own research in-house, so we do quite a bit of our own research on the things that we buy. Looking at if you look at the presentation, yes, a lot of them are local municipalities. The balance is primarily agencies, et cetera. That's in the charts that are on pages 12 and 13. The biggest component of these, both of them, are currently municipal bonds, not 12 and 13, 11 and 12.
Is that your?
What's that?
Is that your? Is that your?
Yes. Could be. I'm not sure.
I read that they were loading some. I don't.
Yeah, they.
Can't remember.
Yeah, JP, the gentleman that does the fixed income work, does quite a bit of credit work on the names that he owns.
So you would review regularly with Jared what you're buying?
We would, as we talk with Jared, we will go over what we have bought. We would not necessarily come and ask him every time we bought a security what we would be buying, right?
Yeah. You answered my one question different than what I was gonna, the answer is different than what I thought it was gonna be.
Okay.
I have one question with 2 points in it.
Okay.
One is, you know, the feds are also threatening to dial back on the purchase of bonds.
Right.
I agree too, that there's a good chance of interest rates going up
Mhm.
because of inflation. Now, my thinking is when you have these two things, that bond rates are gonna drop.
Now, bond prices drop, bond rates go up because in the bond world, everything is priced off a treasury bond. So let's use the Fed's example. They're going to start tapering their purchases in November. What happens then is that the demand that they have for buying bonds will go down. So the price for those bonds will also go down. So the interest rate conversely will rise because the demand has fallen. And therefore longer term interest rates will rise. And that'll happen ahead of any Fed move.
Okay, I understand that.
It runs opposite. Which
Yeah.
makes it-
It's bond and valuation 101 is rates higher, values down.
So you're buying these in order to have such a short time to maturity.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying bonds that maybe were issued 10 years ago and they're now at a point where they're close to maturity.
There may be bonds that we're buying that were issued a long time ago. The vast majority of what JP has been buying has been new issue, issued at par
for 2 years or less.
for 2 years or less. Yes,
The market's rewarding short term.
exactly. It has been. That's where all the demand has been. And actually, the demand has been extremely short term. So 6 months in.
I'm curious. So, you know, these structured notes that people are getting into?
Yeah.
Those seem a lot riskier.
They are. They are. Structured notes basically are quote unquote plain vanilla notes that have derivative securities included in them so that you can get the benefit of moves in whatever risk you're trying to offset. That is not appropriate for this organization. And I believe you are precluded by law from owning
Yeah.
them.
Jared, what is your time frame on making a decision on this? Because we'll have to discuss it a little bit, and maybe we'll have an additional question or two.
I mean, there is no, definite deadline, I think, that we need to meet. I mean, my thought was to at least present it to the committee tonight and the rest of the board and give you some time to think about it. We can have Malcolm back if there are additional questions.
Yeah, I've given you all my business cards. If you have questions, you can call or email, and I'm more than happy to get back to you.
It's something I'd like to talk with Jared, review everything. I think it's always worthy of a conversation, something we're looking into, but I think we need time to digest it, look at the information, gather some questions and follow up.
Alrighty. Any other questions for Malcolm right now, Tom?
Nope, good. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in and offering this to us. I mean, right now, it's if you're on a fixed income, for example, just any normal person, and it's pretty rough right now.
It has been. Yeah.
So the inflation, kind of testing our way out of the waters, and now I've been reading about this transitory inflation, which I've been trying to figure out here how do you define that? So I think it's still a bit of a bucking horse. It's volatile. It's nice if we can figure out how to leverage ourselves as well as we can. To make room on that.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Certainly. I'll give you the extra copy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so it's now 11 minutes after 6. Let's talk about the separate votes, please.
Yes, ma'am. This is something that we did last year too, as kind of incentive to see if we could try and increase our number of subs that sub on a daily basis. Whereas now we pay $90 a day per sub, or that is what Kelly Services pays based on our rate that we agree to. Everybody right now is struggling to pay to get subs in their buildings. There are some districts right around us that are paying $100, $110 a day. My thought is, I think some of the sub shortage, and we've talked as administration, is probably due to coronavirus, just people afraid to come into our buildings. We could certainly look at increasing our rate on a daily basis. But our thought was if we offer some type of incentive, we can make that decision later on once kind of, hopefully things go back to some normalcy. But at least this $150, what is being proposed here tonight, is if a sub works more than 10 days per month, they get some additional money. And it incentivizes people not just to get a little bit of extra money because they sub a day or two, but to actually come in and sub for us at least 10 days out of the month in order to earn the incentive of $150. And that would be paid, Kelly's would put their information together and they get us a report as to who the people are, and then we sign off on it. Similar to what we did last year when we were having the same issue. And it did help a couple.
Yeah.
We had probably 10, 12 subs between paraeducators, administrative assistants, and teacher subs. We probably had 10, 12 people every month who kind of met that goal of 10 days.
Questions? Jerry?
Well, I'd like to, I guess, throw out, would it be worthwhile to make it a gradual thing? For 5 days a month to be $75, 10 days a month to be $150, and even 15 days? Or do we want to just do 5 and 10? The old Ben Franklin.
Certainly, usually, in a typical month, I would say there's probably 18, 20, 22 days that are available for subs to actually come in. So getting, anybody here for 5 of those days probably is still worth the time. So we can certainly.
Because Erin just, prior to the meeting, said she had to do lunch duty today, cafeteria duty today, because she was down 2 subs. So.
Did a fine job, I understand.
I agree. If you set the cap number, we can work out the details and work up the formula. I think that makes great sense. If you just agree the cap number, we can figure out those details. But I think that's a step in the right direction. Absolutely.
So your net really, you're really taking them to $105 a day if they come for 10 days.
4 or 5.
And our thought behind it was that hopefully they'd commit to us for a certain amount of days to get that bonus rather than jumping around everywhere else. We're hopeful that'll work.
Yeah, I'd certainly support it moving forward. And I like Terry's 2 steps.
Cinda?
Yeah, the only thing I was concerned about was if somebody's willing to sub and wants to sub and is available to sub, will they always have the opportunity to sub? How are the subs chosen? Because I know it used to be you had to be on the good side of the person that called the subs in order to get called.
Well,
I know it's different with Kelly, but how do they do that?
We've taken that option away. There can't be a teacher. Not to say, we've made it known you're not supposed to do that. A teacher cannot put their absence in and assign a teacher to it. In the system, they put the absence in, and then it goes out, an all call to whoever is available at that time. Not to say that somebody couldn't put their absence in and text or call somebody and say, hey, I just put this absence in, go sign up for it. But they can't assign anybody individually to it. And the call goes out to everybody who's available if they haven't already taken something.
The first person that answers the call, is that how?
Absolutely, yeah. It's
first come, first serve. Okay.
Yep.
And Miss Cinda, we see such a depletion in subs and the need for increase in subs happening. We'll monitor it, but I don't see it. I don't see us having a surplus. It's that bleak right now. We're good at when we post a full-time position, quality candidates as far as teachers. Everywhere else, we're struggling like everyone else at the talent war. So I think there's a need, and we did take some of those changes we made that would preclude those things from happening as they did in the past.
They want somebody to be willing to work, and they get 9 days, and then nothing else. They don't
Yeah.
get 9 days, and that would be
That's a good point.
counterproductive.
And to be honest with you, last year we had a couple times, especially in the wintertime, where somebody was at their 9th day, and it happened at least twice last year where their 10th day of the month they were signed up to work and we had a snow day.
Yeah.
And Kelly's called me and I said, absolutely, if that person fully intended to work that day, we cannot fault them for being a snow day. They deserve that bonus.
Yeah.
So maybe what we can do is to build on Mr. Kerr's thought is if we can, because what we have to do is the board has to approve an addendum to the Kelly contract. So we could approve this 150 tonight for 10 days and then maybe come back November 15th and approve for 5 days. Maybe it's $50 or something like that to get you that bonus. And then at least we can get something in place as soon as possible.
I think there should be, though, and you kind of alluded to it, Jared, I think there should be a differential between the 5 days and the 10 days. Yeah. In other words, if it's, as he suggested, $10 or $50 for 5 days and $150 for 10 days, I think that's, I think you needed that difference to help get them to stay even longer.
Yeah, I can bring another addendum back November 15th for your approval.
Can we just modify it for tonight? Oh, you have the contract.
We have the addendum that reads in the way it's posted.
So we should say that, Mike said the cap number, so we should say that the board approves offering all substitutes employed through Kelly Services an incentive of up to and including up to and including $150. Okay, so that's all. Okay.
I think Barb.
Barb, yeah, and then we'll go to Tammy Blank. Go ahead, Barb.
I'm kind of concerned that this won't work. When I was at Aaron IU, the directors from other school districts were talking, and they've gone as far as they've done this, and they've raised salaries to $115 an hour or a day, and it's still just not working. So I'm concerned that we'll put this out there and it's not going to work. That either the bodies just aren't there, or essentially we're giving money to employees we already have that would already be working 10 days a week. Well, 10 days a month, I'm sorry.
And it could be true. That's something we have to look into. But at this point, we're almost at dire need with the amount of people calling off and the amount of shortages we have. Like anything else, there's always some flaws, but we can monitor the situation, always report back to the board and see if you want to change gears.
But on the other hand, this did work last year. So, I mean, you did have people you paid that substituted for us an awful lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's our best shot today.
And so if it appeases the board, related but different subject, we also work with IEP to make sure that we can hire student teachers. They can work up to 10 days. So we have exhausted all avenues we can to try to provide for the continuity education. What I'm fearful of is not the quarantines anymore shutting us down. It's the lack of subs shutting us down. And I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying that's a real fear. And I don't know if this will work. I think it's worth a chance. It worked last year, but it may not work again. Your points are well taken, Ms. Parker.
Does this lock us into the rest of the year, like a contract for the rest of the year, or so many months, or?
Jared, what were we looking at? I think the rest of the year, does it not? We can always revisit it. The motion reads the incentive can be canceled at any time, and that's our agreement with Kelly, so we can end it at any time.
So we could modify it
if you need to. I would say this: urge a little caution. It only gets worse in the springtime. I mean, yes, we can do that. I'm not trying to be negative. I would stay the course with this because it gets harder to fill subs when it's a Friday in May and it's beautiful out.
Tammy Blank?
I say go for it with the prorated rate for people who can't get to the 10 days, and crossing my fingers we make it through to June.
Anything else about this? We'll go forward with the motion. Just a question. Is this currently on the website right now?
It is not. No. I can put it on there. I didn't want to do it before the board saw it. So I can put it on there.
All right, so it's now 6:21. We're going to go to, this should be short, closing of the junior high impressed accounts.
Yes, ma'am. The junior high has an old checking account right now that they used to use to deposit field trip money in, those type of things. And then they would issue the district a check out of it. It was just kind of a way for them to, possibly if they had to write a check for some other things. They haven't used it in years, and we have now set up a new system. Some of that we do through food service, where we have bank bags that go in between the buildings. People sign off when money's put in there, and then it comes over here and people sign off. So we really just don't need that checking account anymore. And there's no reason to just have it open there sitting. Like I said, it hasn't been used in years. The board approved it years ago to create it. The board just needs to approve to close it. And we'll work with S&T to get it closed if the board approves that tonight.
Questions? Anybody?
How much is in the account?
Right now, there's $500 sitting in it.
Anybody else?
No.
Okay, good. The last item startles me. That the Act 1 index is up to 4.3%.
Yes, ma'am. That seems to keep creeping up there higher and higher over the past couple of years.
So when do we vote on all of this stuff? So there's a vote that relative to the index that's coming up.
This year it can happen in January, can happen as early as December, but with a new board, possibly new board members coming in, because it's not in a presidential election year, it can be, the deadline is, I believe, like January 27th, where we have to have that vote to either stay within that 4.3% as far as raising taxes, or prepare a preliminary budget and seek exceptions to go above the 4.3. So the board can take that vote anywhere, in December or January. What I was proposing was, or the date I was looking at was January 10th. It's the first board meeting in January. It gives the new board members some time to get in, but it also doesn't push us 2 days before the deadline to get everything into PDE either. So,
any questions about that?
Just to be clear, this line is, we're allowed to go to 4.3% without asking for exceptions.
yes, sir. Yeah,
And we normally start off the budget process with that, but we make it very clear that we have no intention of raising taxes.
yes. The first vote you have to take really can be just to stay within that index, and
Right.
you're not going to raise taxes above that. And then the normal budget
see,
process.
yeah, I want you to,
Traditionally,
yeah, traditionally, I just want to make sure that doesn't get in the paper that we're raising taxes 4.3%.
Yeah,
No,
it's
sir.
the index.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that gets clear that.
Correct.
But,
And then at the next audit and finance meeting, we will, hard to believe, but we will begin the discussion of next year's budget already with the first, I'll bring back kind of a detailed timeline as to what we'll be looking at as far as board decisions, kind of deadlines, as far as submitting different things, possible meetings we'll be having. So we'll bring that back to the November meeting. With that.
I would imagine it's going to be, I would imagine it would be a new board, that we, we'll probably continue to budget at 0% tax rates unless we decide that there's some, I would think it would take a lot for us to change from that, something rather unexpected. So I think you can kind of expect
Yep, we can start in the projections, even the ones that you have here tonight for the next couple of years. As part of the document, include a 0% tax increase.
Okay. And so the budget timeline on the first board vote, what date?
January 10th would be,
The first board vote, budget time.
and that would be to either, stay within the 4.3% if you were to look at raising any taxes, or to apply for exceptions.
All right. Okay. Anyone think of ours?
Sure. Why is there $1 million decrease in revenue from federal sources in 2022-23 versus 2021-22?
Mainly because the ESSER funding is starting to be spent down and going away. And the number could certainly change because all of the ESSER funding absolutely hasn't been decided on yet. We still have about 1 million that we haven't, as a committee and as a board, decided how we're going to use it. So it could be spent in that year as well, Ms. Barker.
Now, if I understand it correctly, is it in the infrastructure bill that they're talking about now, that may have the votes for, that the pre-K money would come through? Am I driving the wrong?
There's different talks about that, as well as some money for school infrastructure. We don't know the details yet. Depends on what they decide as a group, but there's a lot of things being thrown out right now at the federal level.
Yeah, so maybe they'll be.
It would be nice.
Any other questions?
Julia, yeah, I think it's important, particularly this year, to do this in January. There is a potential of one or maybe two new board members, and the problem is that in December, unless there's some critical reason, we typically only have one business meeting, and that usually occurs right after the reorg meeting. And to take somebody cold turkey right after that, and that may have them actually start to think about this, I think is, I'd like to give them enough time to call Jared or call Mike or whoever, or call you and have a little discussion on how that actually, kind of plays out. So I think it's important that we wait till June on this.
So is this PSBA still making everybody do these classes?
Do classes, yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's embedded in the law.
If you run it or reelected, you got to take these credits.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you take them online?
There are some online ones through PSBA. Yep, mypsba.com. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then so is it still the case that if you've been on the board for a while, then Walter, Terry, you don't have to do it?
Yeah, it's only when you're reelected. So if you're reelected or you have a certain amount of hours you have to get, and if you're a new member, I think that numbers are even higher. They both do online through MyPSB, and then I know IU and other entities do their own as well. We do our own. We do a little bit of our own boarding. It doesn't count for that requirement, but we do some onboarding just so we can teach people how we work. And how Miss Cinda went through it. I thought it went really well. It seems that onboard her well is how we operate, how we work things together. And there's one then through the IU. You can go in person. Or the PSB will also do some on sites, but you know what? They're going to be probably in Pittsburgh or somewhere inconvenient. And then there's the one online that you could do as well.
So how many credits?
I can't remember total number of hours. It's a total number of hours, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say 20 or 4. I can't. I see. I didn't want to say. I don't know. I could double check that. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was something small. Yes.
You did like an informal one here, and that was really good. But then the one that they held at Aaron was also really good. And I enjoyed that much more than I would have liked anything online.
But you didn't get credit for it.
Through the IU, she does. That met the requirement. Yep. The one through the IU meets the requirement. Mine is just more of how we do things internally. No. 3 hours.
So reseated school director must complete 3 hours of training on their field action.
And how about new board members? Is it 6? Okay.
It was 2 evenings is all it was. It was not bad.
And they had an excellent speaker on the financial.
Yes, they did. Took half of my dinner. Took half of my stuff.
That is correct.
Yeah.
You had to feed him.
I had to feed him.
Yeah.
Always feed him.
2 points. 2 points on this is that they never answered the question about what happens if I don't take the credits.
There's nothing enumerated in the law.
There's nothing written in the law that they don't hold funding up. They don't put handcuffs on me. And secondly, the legislature can go and become a senator without a single hour of training. And we have 500 school boards that have to spend 3 hours every 2 years doing training for a legislature that has no training. And it just irritates the heck out of me.
Tom, draft a letter.
Comments.
Sure. Go ahead.
With, again, inflation, are all our utility rates locked in for the rest of the year?
Only our electric and our gas are locked in for at least a year, possibly 2 years.
Or
We
are there
just
any
renewed our
other,
gas for I think the 2 years beyond this one even. So
are there other inflationary items in our budget that other than pretty much everything, food, insurance, there's going to be, be curious to see how much of an increase we see.
Speaking of food, we're in a good spot thanks to Jared and Eleanor's leadership, but there's a lot of schools going through some hard times across the country in food shortages for lunches. I mean, it's really difficult for a lot of schools. So we've been in a good spot thanks to Jared and Eleanor's planning and their purchasing power through our vendor, but there's a lot of schools who aren't so favorable position.
So they're not so favorable because the food isn't there for them to buy, or they don't have the money, cash reserves to actually pay for it in advance.
No, it's a backlog in the system. It's a supply issue. There's a lot of schools facing through their vendors a real break in the supply chain that they're unable to get food. And you're seeing a lot of schools going to different measures with multiple menus or different menus, anything they can to get through Jared and Eleanor met with me over summer. They saw the vision that this was going to come down the road. They worked with our third-party vendor to make sure that we had a bigger supply purchasing power chain through them, and they over prepared for this, and thankfully so.
Do we need to give you permission if something does happen that you get all the kids pizza so that we don't get on social media that we're starving kids?
Yeah, Jared and I talked about that. If we see any need, we'll be sure to come to you. But we have backups and plan. You're right, but there are some schools really struggling with this. In fact, Congressman Thompson's office reached out to me to make sure we were okay. I mean, it seems to really hit the smaller schools that don't have the purchasing power that we do. It seems to be hitting a lot of those schools. Wouldn't you agree, Jared? From what I could tell.
Yeah, I mean, I have, and it also seems a lot to do with the supplier, meaning like U.S. Foods or Cisco, who you're able to get foods from. But we have not had to adjust our menu at all this year so far. Knock on wood. We've kind of built a big supply of some inventory of certain food items that we know there could be upcoming shortages on. And it seems silly, like French toast sticks and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, stuff like that. I know, the food service truck driver has a couple times said, "What are we doing with all this stuff?" And it's because she's here, Eleanor's hearing that it could become a shortage in a couple months. So I've told her, I said, "You get that stuff in here. I don't mind if we have to build up inventory now. We have 6 months of school left to burn it off because we don't want to have a lot of stuff sitting in there in June. But right now, I don't care if it looks like on our profit and loss statements that we're at a loss because we've built up some inventory in a month, as long as we have what the kids like and we have it ahead of time." So,
Anything else? We're good to the order. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. How are you?